And streaming to you from a golden beach, this is Knack and Jay. Hello, everybody! How
Hi.
are you all doing this fine Saturday evening?
Well,
Yes.
I'm here.
I would hope so, or else this would just be Knack.
Yeah, that's a
And
fair
that
point.
doesn't have the same ring to it.
So, it occurs to me I kind of goofed. I didn't play the channel intro. So,
It's alright.
that's not a thing that's happening right now. My bad.
That's alright.
Okay.
Somehow we'll carry on.
Alright.
As nice as the channel intro and the outro are, they're relics of a bygone era.
Are they? Are they?
An era where we were actually trying to get popular.
I mean, one might argue we're still trying.
Yep. Well, not for more than 2 more days.
Okay.
Go ahead, hit us with the weekly disclaimers and or information.
Yeah, no, we've got some disclaimers. So, first of all, hi everyone. Few things. First of
Hello.
all, Kappa is going to affect us. We have a video up on the channel courtesy of Meso that kind of goes over it, and that will give you an idea of how things are going to change. As a result of that, there are 2 avenues of which you can go to continue interacting with our community and with us. The first of which being Patreon, patreon.com/TTV channel. For as low as $1 a month, you can join our Patreon chat and listen to this live. I gotta get the Patreon scroll working on this at some point.
Yeah.
So there is this, the Patreon. You can be a part of the chat, and we're working on a stretch goal of 100 patrons so that we can start a full-time Minecraft server on the island of Matanui. And it'll be a faction server, which is immensely fun. Trust me. Of course,
It's one of our favorite things to do way back when.
Yeah. Of course, that's incredibly optional. We're not gonna force anyone to do that. Ulti! Huh. No, I'm kidding. The other way is the TTV message boards, board.ttvpodcast.com. Or, correction. I don't know why I said that. Board.ttvchannel.com. You have to be 13 years or older to be a member of the site. We find out otherwise, and you're gone. But it's a fun website. Just read the rules. Currently, we have 1 topic up. It is top 10 moments of 2019 on the TTV channel. You can go ahead and submit your favorite moments from the past year. That's been on either this channel or the Nerfed channel. We're going to take them all into consideration, make up a list of our 10 favorites, 10 or 11 favorites, I don't remember. And then you will all vote the order that they will be in. The topic closes in 3 days, so get to posting. After that,
lines are rising.
Yeah, I'm going to open a couple other topics after that. I think we'll do 2 polls. We'll do top 10 moments of 2020 and the top 10 moments of all time, seeing as the TTV channel, YouTube channel, will be celebrating 10 years in 2020. That's
There
it.
you go. And then also Twitter. If you'd like to follow us at the TTV channel, because notifications are going away on January 1st, that will become our primary point of contact for people to know when our videos go up, when our live streams are, and when our live streams go, well, live. We're going to be making a lot more tweets in correspondence with a discussion thread per video on the boards. So that is going to be our new reality. It's kind of unfortunate, but there's not much to do about it at this point. It's over.
Yep, pretty much.
So, with that being said, congrats, LJ. It actually did work this week.
Wait, what?
I did not have to change to the Biocraft. It didn't change from the Biocraft. Oh no, it worked.
Wow. Okay, I don't know what I did, which is nothing, but cool. I'll take it. So, one other quick thing I want to address. We've gotten some comments every now and then asking, please don't make the live streams private after they end. Because the stream will end, not everyone gets the notification because YouTube has, I don't know, broken itself again. And so a few people have asked, hey, can you just let it be so that when I do get around to seeing the notification, I can just go back and listen to it? My answer to that is, as cold as this sounds, no. I'm not going to change from making them private. They should be going up right afterwards. Unfortunately, they
Correct.
don't. However,
We slow.
there might be changes that need to be made to the tags, to the thumbnail,
Which
to
there
the
are.
description, to all sorts of different things. And as such, when they end, the streams are not release ready upon release or upon the stream end. There are modifications that need to be made, and so we need to actually go and make them. It should be done right after it ends, but it isn't. And as such,
Yeah.
we're privating them, and we're not changing that. They're going to be privated after it ends.
Yeah, what you will see, especially as we move into this new era where we can't really rely too much on YouTube, is you will see more promptness all around because there pretty much has to be, when it comes to this kind of stuff. So it should be a problem that fixes itself fairly shortly.
Yeah. So, just wanted to address that real quick.
All right.
So,
Well, Jay, this week is a big one.
yes.
It's the first actual Bionicle discussion episode. We've talked about a bunch of extraneous stuff, a bunch of community stuff, Bionicle in the modern era, possibility of future Bionicle. But last week on our thing about why fan projects fail, one of the points you mentioned was that everybody who makes Bionicle, and I guess it did use the Biocraft thumbnail.
Wow.
It didn't
So
for me.
what you're saying? Okay, well, TTV lies again. Thanks, Meso.
Oh wait, no, I know why it didn't. It's because I was logged into the TTV channel, waiting to fix it. So I guess it would show up correctly in that manner. XD.
Amazing.
Well, it is fixed now. Or it will be in a moment. Anyway, you talked about how people really fall back on 2001 a lot when they make fan projects. A lot of fan projects just end up being based in that time period. They end up reimagining that era. They end up taking some liberties and kind of redoing Bionicle 01. And primarily, one of the questions that this week's episode will seek to explore is why is that? But we're going to be talking about a lot more than just why 2001 is often used as a baseline. We're going to be talking about the year in general and whether people look at it through rose-colored glasses. Because I think I'll start this off in a controversial manner. I don't like 01 that much. Okay, hold up.
Hang on. Sorry, wait. I can't hear what you just said over my sharpening of my pitchfork. Hang on, wait. Hang on, I'm trying to get this fire started. Got it right under my steak, which is where you're going to be in a second.
Listen. I don't hate it. I just strongly dislike it. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, how dare you take a page out of my book, you plagiarist.
For real. I think it's a good year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's firmly in the top 5 Bionicle years. But I would probably put it at number 5. There's a lot of reasons why that is. But suffice to say, I don't drink the 01 Kool-Aid like most do.
I don't like what you just said right there. Yeah, that makes me unhappy.
And I'm not saying that you drink the Kool-Aid. I'm just strongly implying that you drink the Kool-Aid.
Okay. For starters, I'm reasonably confident I haven't drank a drop of Kool-Aid in my life. In my 105 years of living, not one single droplet of Kool-Aid has entered my body. However, I will say I am a huge fan of 2001. It is my favorite year. I don't know if I'd call it the best year for Bionicle, but it's easily my favorite for a variety of reasons, and I am 100% ready to defend it.
Oh boy. I mean, it's tough because, like, on its own merits, I don't think it's a bad year. It's not like I hate it. Like 2005, that's a year I hate. I'll rip into 05, 10 ways from Sunday, and I'll just and I'll make sure to be really really intense on my hatred for that one. But O1, I like O1. It's cool, It's got good sets. It's got Monog. It's got good sets. It has
You say plenty of good. We're gonna have a problem.
It has plenty of good attributes. I think my problem comes from I feel that its qualities are somewhat overinflated and used as the baseline for like Bionicle can be nothing except how it was in 01. And so every new take on Bionicle, every fan project or every official Lego reboot just tries to like ape as much from 01 as possible. When as far as years go, I feel like there were plenty of years with a stronger story, plenty of years with stronger and more memorable advertising, plenty of years with more, interesting characters. And 01's real strength is its world. Because no one will argue that the island of Motunui is the most well-developed landscape in the Bionicle universe. It has the most character. We spent the most time with it. It's the most fleshed out. But I think really, and this, I'm not going to lean too much into this discussion point because we may talk about it more in a future episode, but I feel like 90% of the reasons why people like 01 come from Monog, and Monog wasn't made by Lego. In fact, Monog was made in spite of Lego's vision for what they wanted 01 to play out as, which it doesn't take away from the fact that Monog exists, and Monog is great. And when you talk about 2001, it's not like you can discount Monog just because it's made by Templar. And yet, when I compare it to other Bionicle years, which were made entirely by Lego, I do kind of like to... I like to look at Monog with a big ol' asterisk beside it. Like, yes, this exists, but it's also weird. It's an anomaly. It's complete random happenstance, and I like to judge its other qualities a bit more strongly. Unfortunately, the thing with 01 is there was a plan for a lot of media to come out in 2001 that kind of evaporated into the ether. There was going to be a movie that didn't pan out. There were going to be books that didn't pan out. There was going to be a game, The Legend of Motunui, that didn't pan out until recently. So what we were left with for the Bionicle 2001 theme were a wave of sets, 6 characters released at McDonald's, 6 Toa, 6 Turaga, and was it 6 Rahi?
It's 5 Rahi.
5 Rahi. Collectible mask packs, a series of comics released in the Lego Club magazine. 3 comics, and Monog, which was released periodically over the course of the year, if memory serves properly.
Yes,
that was really it.
That's correct.
That was the extent of 01. Now, I will say the sets, while not the best Bionicle has to offer, are probably some of the most what's the word?
Iconic.
Iconic and innovative, especially for their time.
Oh yeah, I mean, innovative is it's an accurate thing to say. The Toamatsu specifically won a toy award for innovation, if memory serves.
Which is very justified, especially because, like, let's talk from your perspective. You've recently been reviewing the Slicers for the Throwbots, which are Bionicle's like predecessor theme.
Yeah.
How, the sheer advancement between the two.
I mean, yeah,
it's something.
I don't want to jump the gun too much, since the retired reviews are soon to come to a close. Regarding the Slicers, but the Slicers are fascinating in that if you don't have Bionicle as a frame of reference, then the Slicers are really cool. And I mean, even with Bionicle as a frame of reference, a lot of them are very unique. They're very different than Bionicle sets. However, I find myself really longing for the refinement that a lot of Bionicle figures ended up having, especially in 2001 and 2002, that the Slicers just lack, fundamentally. So,
Yeah, they're very rough. They're very like they're not refined at all. They're kind of bootleg. They're like they're rough around the edges, and it's very evident when you look at O1. Like it has a very polished aesthetic. Even the things about it that aren't perfect, like you can't bend the limbs, for instance. Like none of it gets in the way of cohesion. They look very good together. They boasted a lot of new advancements for construction as a formula. And they were just good. So I would never knock, O1 in any particular way for its set design. Looking back, through the lens of objectivity, we can of course criticize. We can criticize some things about the
Meso,
Mata.
objectivity
What?
doesn't exist.
Like their limited posability for one, but on the whole, I happen to think, if I'm being completely fair and not just saying negative things for the sake of hoopla, O1 was the perfect storm of set design and quality that Bionicle needed at that point to really like get that theme going.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was able to approach it from so many different angles, the Toa and Taraga obviously acting as really good standalone figures. The Rahi were these large, more traditional, kind of traditional Lego, but not really. They
The
were
traditional Technic builds.
traditional Technic builds.
The Rahi were far more Technic than the Toa ended up being, and even then, I mean, obviously enough, Bionicle started as a sub theme of Technic, though in 2002 it kind of just went its own way. But at least in 01, the Rahi, of course, kept that very visual, distinct style and system.
Yeah. And they were incredible. They were really, really fantastic builds. And then the McTaurin, which might be a bold claim. I think they're probably O1's greatest stroke of brilliance
Wait, the
that Lego actually
McTaurin?
had a hand in, the McTaurin. The sheer
Sure.
power, the sheer power of advertisement that those things brought, just like putting those out into the wild as things that kids just got for eating Happy Meals that their parents bought for them, I think is instrumental in Bionicle becoming as popular as it actually ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I would have never ever gotten into Bionicle were it not for McDonald's
That's
and the
see,
McTaurin.
that's super fascinating because I didn't go to McDonald's, so
Yeah, fair enough.
I had no. I mean, I didn't get into Bionicle in 2001 anyway. You did. I got in late 02, early 03.
Yep.
So
I was in it from word go, man. I just went to McDonald's, got some food, and I was blown away because it wasn't just a toy. It came with like booklets talking about the story
mm-hmm.
and the poster, which showed the Toa, standing next to their respective Matoran, and it made me want him and want to find out who that was. And the booklet had imagery of the island of Matanui and those screenshots that kind of told the story in picture form of finding the masks and whatnot. It was a brilliant little advertising pack.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they were actually Lego toys, unlike the McDonald's promotions of later years, which were, an embarrassment by comparison. These things were good quality. Now, independent of the set design quality themselves, there's a thesis about 2001, which you've spoken quite a bit about in the past. And I think it's one of the reasons you like it the most.
Are you talking about the set from a set perspective?
I am, from a set perspective.
Great. So there's a lot. This revelation kind of came to me during the whole Brickonicle project, and it's really stuck with me. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up a picture from my recap finale of every 01 set that released. So this is everything. It's not a whole heck of a lot, obviously, but this is everything from 2001. And when I look at this, the thing that really sticks out to me is how it's how almost dense this image is. Like, there aren't many sets, I would say, but right here you have a hierarchy, a visual story that is being told, a visual hierarchy, a world that you can just see with these sets in one place. You have your villagers, you have your elders, and they're distinct. You have your heroic Toa, your greater beings of power, and they're distinct, and all of them are unique. All of them have a distinct feel and tone to them. Like, if you look at them, they all have this distinct atmosphere just around them. And so you already have these villages set up, but then behind them you have wildlife, fauna that inhabit the world, a natural opposition to them. And this world, it's so bright and vibrant and visually fascinating to see, stylistically consistent. It's all very vibrant and alive. And so you don't even need to worry about a story to follow. You have a story right in front of you here. You have your protagonists, and you have the wildlife that they're trying to tame, to curb, in order to survive in the world. And it's right out the gate. It is so engaging of a visual. And no other year really has that engagement like 2001 does to me. Like, '09 is the only one. '09 and '04, in that order, are the only two that come close. And even still, this year takes the cake for its density and its visual intrigue.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the kind of thing, like, I wanted to kind of start with this first because it's the thing LJ and I disagree on the least about anything, is the set design in '01 being, like, number one, the set design itself is marvelous, but number two, the hierarchy of order is, like, it's instrumental, and it's the only year that does it in this way. Like, there are other years which have, a full range of Toa and a full range of Matoran, but this is the only year that has all three stages, because obviously there's only 6 Turaga, so they were only able to make them in this year. You know what I mean? But it's still fair to say that it has every stage of Bionicle life, at least at this point, inside this one theme.
I would say, at the very least, it has the most varied amount of stages, because you could argue, and this is more of a semantic argument, 2004 has Turaga Duma, but it's a different design that is more in line with the Matoran of the year, so it really isn't as distinct and visually gripping.
I'll say not in line exactly the same.
No, there's a difference.
If you had told me that Turaga Doom was a Matoran, I would not have thought twice.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, no,
versus
that's true.
The Turaga and the Mictoran, by contrast, like, they only share, like, one single piece, and that's the masks. And even then, they don't share the same masks. They just share the mask, like, archetype. You know what I mean? Every other piece is distinct and different to only the Mictoran.
Yeah. So it's such a striking year. And that's what I really like about it, that there is such a visual hierarchy. There is a visual distinction in the groups that these characters belong to. And the sets don't even wildly differ in design from each other. Like, there is an argument to be made that these can be considered clone sets. The Mictoran, absolutely. They're 100% clone sets. But the Turaga and the Toamata have enough variance to where it's hard to say. They're technically clone sets in the sense they use the same template, though I can't say that any two Toa or any two Turaga feel identical. I cannot say that you can have one of these figures outside the Mictoran and you have all of them, like I can for the Tometru or the Vaki or the Vizorak or the Hordika. I can't say that.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly agree. I think that's, from a set design perspective, I think that's '01's greatest strength, even, like, not even factoring in the sets themselves, actually, just, like, their effect on painting that picture of the Bionicle world, I think, is a stroke of brilliance that only this year could achieve, because it's the only time they could make that initial splash. However, just because it's the only year that can doesn't mean it shouldn't be recognized that it did. It could easily have fallen flat on its face.
Oh yeah,
But they were
absolutely.
able to differentiate they were able to differentiate the classes of being from each other enough, and then differentiate the beings themselves enough to not be totally identical. And for that, it does have my respect. And I like a lot of the O1 sets, even just talking about their designs. They're not perfect, but I love the Mictorian to death because I mean I can't really criticize them. They're they were free. The Toa are great. They were innovative. The Rahi are phenomenal. Like every one of them holds up today. The Traga are okay.
Wait, the Rahi holds up today?
Yeah, the Rahi every build I think holds up
Um,
today.
I won't argue it. I think, yeah, no,
Do
yeah,
you
no,
not like some of their Rahi?
no, I like all of the Rahi. I mean, I like every Bionicle set. Some to more
Even
varying,
Ketar?
yeah, even Ketar. So some to varying degrees, obviously enough. With O1, like, I mean, without the batteries, the Manas are hard sell, and the Nui
That is true.
Jaga are really good. However, you weren't kidding with me when you said, "Hey, the the Nui Jaga legs are really frustrating because they don't touch the
Yeah,
ground." And that was over
yeah.
6 years ago. You said that to me, and it's stuck with me ever since.
It's true. It bugs me, but like their builds are still cool. The Nui Jaga are the ones I would definitely rank the lowest if I had to. Hold a gun to my head and say pick your worst. It'd be the Nui Jaga.
Yeah, it's hard to
You do
argue
raise
about.
a good point. You do raise a good point about the Manas basically being worthless if it wasn't for the batteries. But I mean, like the fact that they are the only Bionicle set like that is remote controlled. That's part of its novelty.
Yeah, no,
It's like
absolutely.
saying Tahu without the mask is just a throwbot. It's like, but it has the mask.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't
no,
know.
and that is fair. The Manas are admittedly very fun. If you have friends or siblings and you have two Manas, they are loads of fun. Absolutely.
Nice. So I think set design overall is a thumbs up. There is merit to the discussion, especially when it relates to 2015 Bionicle and the Anika build and all this of like, well, people hold the Toamata on a pedestal. I remember when G2 was a thing, we were having this conversation with people who said that the Mata were the best sets ever. You remember this? You remember the people just praising the Mata endlessly
Well,
above anything else?
yeah, I remember it on my reviews. Cuz
Oh yeah.
I remember on my early recap reviews, which were opinion pieces by the way. They were not conglomerate or they weren't community aggregate like they ended up becoming. They were my opinion on sets. And I even said, I critiqued them for having poor articulation because that's a valid criticism of them. And people would come into the comments and come after me for criticizing the Tomata, saying, well, back then they were fine. Back then they didn't have the capability of making knees. Well, back then, listen, just because something is old, it doesn't make it good.
No. And to say that it stifles any opportunity for positive growth or change. Love or hate what Bionicle turned into, and trust me, we're gonna talk about the set design through the years in a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it did dramatically increase their amount of posability as figures. That was a thing. Gear functions were great, but the reliance on those was limiting. They didn't fully go the route of posable action figures as much as they ended up doing. And personally, in my action figures, I enjoy having knees. I enjoy being able to do dramatic posing. I enjoy doing all this stuff a lot more than I enjoy twisting a gear, personally speaking. Like, I respect the ingenuity of functions from a design perspective, and I definitely think there's more stuff to think about, from in a design manner that way than sets where you just have, like the Avmatoran, for instance, where it's literally just ball joints and nothing else. But gear functions aren't the end all be all for what makes a great set, and it's not the only thing that matters. There are other facets that matter, and older waves of Toa did it better. the Metro, hate to say it, did it better. They might not be as iconically designed, but they evolved the formula. The 2015 Toa did it better. Sorry, not sorry. Toa Masters are better than the Mata. Fight me.
I mean, I don't think anyone's going to argue that.
Yeah, but that being said, I respect the design work of the Mata as historical pieces, and also because it's not like they're bad. They're just not perfect. Um, so all in all, set designs get the thumbs up. It's just it's the story where things start to fall apart. And I think a good way to really break down my critique with O1 and why I don't really like it as much as some people do is because I was a harsh critic of G2's story, as you all know. Anybody who watched our podcast back then, eventually everybody kind of came around to my side once it became clear that they weren't going to do anything with it and they really were kind of veering it off into a cliff. But from word go, the very moment that I heard in that interview from New York Comic Con that the animations were only going to have one voice actor, it was from that point, I don't even think 2015 had started yet, that I was just like, I was very leery about G2's success. And I was always the most critical towards it, for the reason that I didn't find the story all that engaging. And a lot of it was due to presentation, but just the basic story. Island is in trouble, so the Toa come down because they've been summoned, and they have to fight against this villain Makuta, who is using minions by proxy to harass the islanders by using these, mind controlling infected, mask spider things to latch on to people, turn them crazy, cause havoc. Toa have to go around and they have to find golden masks. It's golden mask fetch quest. And then whenever they get all the golden masks, they then have to go fight Makuta and they have to save the island. And that to me isn't that interesting of a story, especially when you compare it to some of Bionicle's greats. I mean, let's just take a look at 2001. Toa gets summoned down to an island to fight off against Makuta, who's controlling people and things through infected masks, and the wildlife of the island is going ballistic, so the Toa have to fight them and find golden masks to then go stop Makuta and save the day. It's like, that's a way better story. Wait a second.
Well, yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. You want to know why G2 failed to succeed where 2001 did not?
Monog?
I mean, sure.
It didn't have Monog?
Sure. It still had a 2D storytelling medium.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's the problem. It's easy enough to say, oh, it didn't have Monog. It didn't have an engaging form of media.
No.
That's where things really differ. It didn't have an engaging form of media, and it didn't have a form of media that fleshed out the environment. 2001 had an incredibly expansive and rich world to inhabit. It really set the groundwork for the theme's world building. Nothing has gotten to the level of 2001 world building. Obviously, it didn't end in 2001. However, 2001 set the groundwork.
It's the best developed island in all of Bionicle, and that's important.
Exactly. And so you have this, and most of it happened in the first year. So you have this fantastic setting. You have these locations, this environment, and you have these characters with enough auxiliary media to inform their character, to encourage you to seek it out, that allows you to make your own stories, to fill in the gaps. And this is really where this is where we'll probably disagree the most.
Probably.
That if you all look 2001 is being referred to as the Sandbox year in the title of this video. The reason we have coined that term for it is because 2001 is a sandbox, and your tools are your characters.
Accurate. Here's the thing. You know, a lot of people say The Last Jedi was a good movie, but a bad Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
2001 was a good Lego theme, but a bad story.
I'm actually gonna
That's
I'm gonna
that's
reverse
what
that.
else.
I'm gonna completely flip that. I think. Wait, a bad story?
But a good Lego theme. Its sandbox nature makes it the perfect Lego theme, because Lego as a company, they we come to Lego and we like discussing their stuff because we are a group of people who always valued digging deep into things. That's why we have a podcast. But like Lego by itself, they sell sets. They don't sell stories. That was always the mantra. Lego is not this massive movie company. They don't have big sprawling book series or cinematic universes, or I mean, they did recently, but it's gone. Lego sells products, but Bionicle and Lego in general, always, but Bionicle in particular, really put the emphasis on creativity in this world, because now you had a sandbox, like LJ says. It wasn't just like with Throwbots. It wasn't just oh yeah, he uses robots and they're fighting. Well, one was like, well, here's this place, and on this place these people live. We're gonna follow a few of them. There's a lot of other people, and it made it feel like a real sprawling place where people can set their own stories, where people can make their own characters and their own figures, and they can do all this crazy stuff. And undeniably, that is its strength, in a way that no other real year has. But by that same token, it's like everything I just described is what Hero Factory did.
Okay.
But you don't hear people saying that Hero Factory was this amazing, great, revolutionary, innovative Lego thing. All you hear about is people saying Hero Factory's story sucked. Because
Yeah.
when you leave so much to the imagination, what you actually have to focus on is pretty bare bones.
Yes. And
Um,
that's why so many people are saying 2001 did it well. They did it so. I mean, they did it perfectly. Because 2001 hit that balance. It gave you enough to be informed, but not too little to not understand what's happening. There's a progression. However, there aren't enough details to lock you out of doing what you would like to do and letting your imagination run wild. But Hero Factory did not have enough of a platform. It didn't have enough of a foundation. It didn't have enough of that world building. Yeah, we went to literal different worlds. Meso, can you name 5?
nope.
No, I couldn't name one. I can name
That
one.
was
Maku Hero
Quattro.
City.
I remember Quattros.
Okay, I didn't even remember that. Maku Hero City. Do you know what's in Maku Hero City? I don't know. The construction tower, and that's it.
I remember the billboard about Stormer drinking soda.
That's not a landmark, Meso. But yeah, no, HF
I mean,
did that part right in that it let you run wild with your imagination. Unfortunately, it didn't do enough to follow up with that.
exactly. Like, just because I say you don't hear people praising HF, like that doesn't mean I do. I don't. They failed. So my point in bringing it up is like that's not, or to me it shouldn't be like enough. Oh, one did it better than HF, but it also fell into a lot of the same traps.
Like
That
what?
despite their extensive world building, the story was boring.
Was it?
The Toa got masks
Yeah.
and they fought Makuta.
Okay. Did you learn
None of
about the
their
characters in that time?
I did, and none of the Toa are particularly super interesting in '01. They really got fleshed out later on, particularly in '03 and 2002 with the Borak saga, putting them in new interesting situations, but very very archetypal in 2001.
Ah.
Um, and a lot of it, like really, this is what it comes back to. It's the fact that their avenues for telling the story were cut away. The only material you really get to see the Toei in is the comics. And comics, by their very nature, aren't really going to be able to do much crazy in the way of introspection or character development because they're comics. They can do some, and they did. It was not a complete failure. But you're not going to be able to do what you can in books. And you're also not going to be able to do what you can in movies because you have a limited number of page count. The Toa were present in Monog, but they were specters. They were hovering in the background. And yeah, they had a little bit of characterization, but they were by far the minority, and that was by design because Templar didn't really find them. Number one, they weren't allowed to use them, and number two, they didn't really find them as interesting as the Matoran. They're like, we prefer our heroes to be the regular people. That's what the blog entry always says. So they didn't really focus on them as much because they couldn't, and even if they could, they wanted to do something different. So you were left with a very limited pool to actually get the Toa established as characters. I think they did all right. Certainly isn't a G2 scenario, but like when I look at the pantheon of Bionicle years, it by far had the least to do with its actual main characters.
Yeah, and that is
They fought Rahi, they got masks.
That is such a strength for the year. So two things in regards to what you're saying. First, oh gosh, I think I just lost my train of thought. It's regarding... Dang it, no, I completely lost it.
Well, while you get it back, Sayobnaf the legendary super chat for $1. Holla holla, thank you. Super chats are very much appreciated, and they help us out a lot, especially with YouTube going rip in a few days. So thank you.
Dang it. your point about the Tomata, what was that again?
It was that they weren't really developed as well as they could have been.
See, okay, there we go. That was my point. So we talk about all of this extraneous story content being ripped away, like the movie or the game. I'm going to be frank. None of that would have helped what you're saying. None of it. Because the movie, let's be generous. Say it's a 90-minute movie. Say it's an hour and a half long. Okay? How much more developed do you think the Toa are going to be in 90 minutes? While also trying to carry out the story.
However much the writers are good at their jobs and make them.
In 2001?
Are you saying that, like, you can't do a good character piece in 90 minutes?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is you have, at the least, 7 to 8 characters to juggle. That is that's Toa, that's Takua, and that's Vakama. How well developed were any of our characters in BioCraft?
Not well developed.
Exactly. Now, BioCraft isn't a great thing to compare to. Obviously enough, it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's borderline parody. It's quite exaggerated. But we
also didn't really try.
Sure, but we also shouldn't. We didn't need to. We didn't need to try because it wasn't going to be in service of the story. You just needed to understand the characters, their motivations, their role in the story, and have them, using their uniqueness, carry the story forward, progress what's happening in the plot. And that's what 2001 needed to do and succeeded in doing. 90 minutes wasn't going to give them this massive character development, or it wasn't going to do enough for so many characters in that short of a time. And the game, we know what their character development is like in the game. It's non-existent. We have nothing. You play as the Toa, they have maybe at most. One Toa might have at the most 8 lines of dialogue for one Toa. Now, I don't know if that's an absolute number. I'm just throwing a number off the top of my head. My point being, it's a low amount of dialogue that doesn't develop the Toa at all. So the game is a bust. 90 minutes is not going to be enough time to rectify the issues you're bringing up. And at the same time, I don't even think they're an issue because that can be done later, and it doesn't need to be done right away in 01.
I think that 90 minutes can certainly be enough time if you have a writer worth their salt who's trying. It's all about arcs. Ninjago is able to give their characters arcs in a season of like 8 episodes. Tabulate the runtime. 8 episodes for 22 minutes. That's like 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So fair enough. Maybe not a full cast of characters. How about 3?
Okay.
Because Bionicle characters in subsequent years, you don't hear me going on the amazing character arc, of self-discovery that Onawa had in 2004. But people do talk about Vakama and Matao. You don't hear me talking about Huki's soul-searching expedition in the Ignition trilogy. But we do have Matoro and Jala. Usually the way Bionicle works, and then later on in 09, it's the same, like Akar and Kina and Matanui. You don't really have every character from an ensemble cast get the same amount of focus. But what you can do is do a few at a time, really dig deep while the rest play supporting roles to add to that ensemble flair. Ninjago is an old hand at this, and Bionicle was too for most of its run. I think it would have been really cool if it had been planned as a trilogy, which we know they kind of thought 2001 might be it. If they had done 3 Toamata in 01, 3 Toamata in 02, and then built it all to a crescendo in 03. It's a different era of characterization. But short version, 90 minutes could definitely have been enough time.
Yeah, for a few of them.
To do something.
For a few of them, and then it's weighted in favor of some. And there's no guarantee we're going to get that for the others. You still think that Liwa and Pohatu have the same character after 10
not
years.
The same, but similar enough. They fill similar archetypes.
Similar enough to be exchangeable, which I highly disagree with and can factually disprove. They're not the same character. We've had this conversation before, and we will again.
Liwa is like the mutant offspring of Tahu and Pohatu.
Okay, so so his own character? Wow!
He's derivative of both, and he's the least.
You're derivative of, I don't know, Brett Dalton. What do you mean? We're all derivative of something. Liwa is distinct enough from both of them. I don't understand this thought process.
You two characterize the difference between Liwa and Pohatu more. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it's swap Pohatu out for Kopaka. Good job. I'm glad we have Batman Pohatu so that we can replace him. We can remove our friendly, happy-go-lucky Pohatu and just have new, dark, cynical Pohatu. And Liwa remains the same. He doesn't change between generations. That's my point. Okay.
There's a post by Always Watching. It says, the Toamata were merely extensions of the tribal aesthetic. They were originally intended to be silent gods. The Matoran were the real characters, and they had plenty of development in Monog. You're right. You're totally right. That is correct. Especially the bit about the Toa intending to be that way from inception. But again, I look at that, it's a weird gray area. I don't like to pretend Monog doesn't exist, but I also only give 2001 partial credit for it, if that makes any sense. Like when I talk about 2001 as an entity, I'm like, all right, cool. Is 2001 good because it had Monog, or is Templar just this great exception? Like, it's not part of the standard fare, so I judge it separately. I judge it in its own tier. because the mistake I feel a lot of people make, and I feel like the G2 people made this mistake as well, is they put Monog up on this like pedestal. It is the best thing Bionicle did, but it's also the most unbionicle thing they did, and it set a standard that's hard to follow, but that's a whole separate conversation. Point being, you're right. Imagine if Monog hadn't existed either. If it had gone the way of everything else, we would be left with the Toa as these characters because they did not write them to be silent gods. Even in Monog, they changed it enough to where they did have elements of their personality come through. They were still the plot driving force. And then, of course, the comics really didn't go that angle. The Toa were the characters that were followed in the comics. And, like, their struggles just weren't, to me, that gripping. Their arcs weren't fleshed out. Their personalities were archetypal. And their conflicts with each other were basic.
Okay.
Tahu needs to work to Tahu needs to overcome his brashness. Liwa needs to be a team player. Kopaka needs to be friendly. These aren't revolutionary things. This is Hero Factory levels of characterization.
So?
Well, you don't. That's the difference between us and how we approach this. 2001, I can say unequivocally, it's a great Sandbox year. And for a Lego theme, maybe that's all it needs to be. I would certainly never say it failed in its mission or it's bad. But when comparing it to the rest of the years of Bionicle, I really, really value character arcs and I really value plot. Those are the two things. That's why I really like the Ignition trilogy. And we'll later come back to that because it had that in spades. It had arcs and it had plot. And it had a plot that took twists and turns and went in directions you maybe wouldn't have expected it to. And deviated from norms a little bit. And it had characters who grew and changed and who were put into situations that challenged their beliefs and who were put into situations that challenged their way of life and were forced to adapt or die, basically. That, to me, is good storytelling. Kopaka needing to be friendly and get his golden mask isn't good storytelling.
See,
but
here's
maybe
the
it didn't need to be.
A, yeah, you're right. It doesn't need to be. And B, with this growth of character, this complex characterization of, oh man, Motoro, his inner dialogue, his inner struggles.
I was thinking Garan. Motoro works too.
I am fine. Garan and his inner struggles, trying to be a leader for the starving Voyatoran as a new threat looms on the horizon in the Paraka, who are trying to be Toa, which fill this moral gray area. I don't care. It's too much. After a point...
It's too much! It's storytelling 101!
Okay, great! Lego doesn't tell stories! Lego does a good job at, guess what? What you do with Lego. Building. And it built 2001 incredibly well. You have your world, you have your characters, you have your basics. Because I didn't see myself growing up with Bionicle going, oh wow, I wonder if Garen did this. He went over here. You know what Garen did in the story? You know what? Okay, he sat in a cave with a box of scraps, which are called the other Voyatoran, Meso. The other Voyatoran are scraps. They're all scraps. And you know what his character arc is? I'm gonna lead the other Voyatoran to defeat the Paraka. And you know what he does? Not that. You know who defeats the Paraka? A rookie Toa team that came out of friggin' nowhere. Okay? That's who beat the Paraka, not the Voyatoran. How many other character arcs did Garen go through, Meso, after 2006? How many did he go through in 2006? None! Zero!
I'll tell you how many he went through in 2006. One more than any Toa from 2001. That's how many arcs he went through.
Objectively wrong. You know who went through a character arc in 2001, Meso? Liwa. Kopaka. Tahu. I'm sorry, that sounds like two more than Garen.
Educate me as to Liwa's amazing arc.
Literally starts. This is in the comics. You can't even disagree with this. It's in the comics. He starts out going, I don't want to work with people. Goodbye. His first mainline appearance in comic 2 is him rescuing Gally. Gally saying, hey, you want to work together? And him saying, stuff it, and leaves. And then he gets in a load of trouble because of it. And then, as he's done with what he was setting out to do, getting his first mask, guess what? He gets into trouble. Guess who saves him? The other Toa. Guess what happens in the next comic? He's working with Onua. He has learned
for babies.
I want to make with you.
I'm sorry, Edgelord McGee. Once you have your fedora up enough to see the rest of the world, and you've taken off your charcoal black trench coat, and you're done learning about the inner gray moral struggles of the Voyadui inhabitants as they are taken by the metaphorical storm that are the morally gray Paraka, and whether or not they'll have to do their darndest to survive. Maybe they have to break the rules of their Toa morality, Meso. Maybe Garen's like, oh gee, can I be a Toa? No, it's murdering time. Maybe Dalu's justified in attacking Avok and upping all of his senses, or attacking Gally and upping all of her senses to insane degrees, because that's all they know how to do is survive at the cost of anyone else, at the cost of being morally good people. Once you're done looking at your weird gray amalgam of storytelling, maybe you can understand the simplistic basics of what makes an iconic, well-told, well-executed story.
What?
They can both be good. However, just because you have all this complexity and morality and gray from 2006 does not mean that the basic straightforwardness of 01 that sets up your entire franchise is immediately bad.
There wasn't any complexity in 06. There wasn't any moral gray area. There was something. There was some kind of a struggle.
Okay, yeah, there was a struggle at 01 too. It's not this complex. Oh man, I'm really struggling. There is growth. There is growth in 01. There's growth in 06.
Bruh.
There is character development. And I don't understand how... I feel like you got into Bionicle before me in 2001, but you really didn't experience it.
I never played Monog, because that's all there was, but I read the comics.
Did you?
It was enough to get me into Bionicle. And then every subsequent year, I got more into it because they got better at telling their story. Which is how it should be. The story, I felt, got better.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm criticizing Bionicle for that. But I only give 01, literally any credence because of Monog. The comics were kind of boring.
First of all, what?
They were kind of lame, dude. And they also were all over the place. They started mid-event.
What are you talking about?
And there were only 3 of them.
What are you talking about, mid-event? I don't understand.
Didn't a lot of them start in Medias Res? Or am I misremembering?
In what?
In the middle of the situation.
What situation?
Oh my god.
There are 3 comics. 3 comics. You know which one starts out of the blue? The second one. You know where the third one starts? Right after the second one. You know where the first one starts? At the beginning of the story.
Well, this doesn't sound like a lot of content to me. I wonder if G2 had more story content than G1. I think it did.
Well, yeah. I think
the one graphic... No, I mean 2015.
Yeah,
I actually think the graphic
I know. I'm talking about
novel,
2015. It had the animations.
That one graphic novel they released was probably longer than all of the Bionicle 01 comics.
Do you really want to put that to test? Because I
Yes.
I have all of them right
Yes.
next to me.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
really...
Yes.
Okay,
Let's
you
go.
know what? Let's friggin'
Let's do
go.
it. Page count battle!
Let's go, you stupid G2 zoomer.
What?
Alright.
G2 Zoom.
Alright, Gathering of the Toa. Is that right?
Yes. I own that. So I can get that info.
I already have it.
Oh, 80 pages.
All right. Well, now I gotta get all my comics out.
I hope you're all enjoying this wonderful episode.
All right. Let's go ahead and see what we've got here.
Here, while you tabulate the page counts, let me respond to this question.
Oh, wait,
always
wait,
watching.
real quick. There are a couple of people saying they have 911 on standby in case I have a heart attack. Go ahead, call it. 911, Eljay's having a heart attack. Yeah, this is Eljay. How's it going? Sorry,
Nice.
I'm obligated.
Always watching. Says Meso, please answer this question. The Star Wars prequels tell a far more complex story than the original trilogy. Does this make them better films? I see where you're going with that. And I respect it for your gotcha moment. But my answer is, of course, no. But it's not for the reason that the complexity is a bad thing. It kind of goes down to what LJ was saying earlier about, 90 minutes isn't enough to tell a story where you can get good characterization. And I was like, with good writers, it could be. It's very similar for the Star Wars prequels. They were not bad because they were complex. The original trilogy was not bad because it was simple. The prequels were bad because the writing was god-awful and all over the place. And the actions of the characters made no sense. If the story of the prequel trilogy had been laser-focused on the fall of Anakin Skywalker and actually written him well, then on its premise, I probably would like them better than the original trilogy, because as cool as it is, the narrative hook wasn't even established until the fifth movie. They did not write A New Hope, with the understanding that Vader was Luke's father. There was no narrative tissue between 4 and 5+6. It was written to be it. So, as movies, they are definitely superior, and the stories they tell superior. As a trilogy, it's kind of weak, a little bit. Prequels could have been good, but there was too much. The delivery was too bad. The political stuff wasn't conveyed well to make it interesting. The machinations of Palpatine weren't conveyed properly to make it interesting. But I don't like 06 because it's complex. I like it because it has arcs that are actual of substance. They matter. They actually have something to do with the overall world and the plot and the stakes the characters are up against. Luke's arc and, Return of the Jedi, can I really fight my own father? Can I kill my own father? Or do I need to try to save him, to redeem him because he's my family, who I love? That to me is on par with, maybe not on the same level or as well told, because Star Wars is a popular movie franchise and BIONICLE is a toy line for kids. But that's the kind of arc that I'm that's a good story. That's on par with some of the later arcs from some characters in BIONICLE. Even freaking Vakama.
Okay. All right, I'm done.
Even freaking Vakama in 2005, whose arc made no sense. Vakama's arc in 2005 is better than anybody's from 01. And that's so to answer your question, I see what you're saying, but to me, it's all about personal handling. 01 could have had good arcs, and they don't have to be super edgy or try hard. They could have just been, regular stories. Ninjago's arcs. Jay really loved Nia, and he wanted to get with Nia, but he had to discover that trying to be something that he's not isn't going to do any favors. Stuff like that. Simple stuff can still be good. Go on.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and break this down. I'm going to say some numbers that you're going to really like hearing. All right? You ready? Okay.
Shoot. I'm looking for one number.
Oh, you're going to get a number all right. 2001, for the 3 comics, combined page count of 35.
Okay.
2015, 49. You want to know why I'm saying that? Not 80 like you said earlier?
Because it's the guidebook fluff at the end.
At the beginning and the end. And I also did the same for 01. I took out anything that was not a comic panel. And you want to know what? In addition to that, 9 pages of The graphic novel from 2015, 9 pages, go over the exact same content, the exact content as the animations. Do you want to know how many
9
of
pages, but you still included them.
I included them. Well, I'm mentioning them right now because they're still pages, so I'm giving you that.
Okay.
But they're 9 pages you now have to discount. So we're down to 40. 40 original pages.
Okay.
That is only 5 more than 2001. And then I'm not even going over the Prophecy of Heroes pages from the beginning of the book either. I'm not even going to bother. That's rehashed content too. Do you know how much of 01 comic content is rehashed?
None.
Exactly.
Because
None.
It was the story. I mean, you're never going to hear me make the claim that G2 2015 is a better year than 01. All you're telling me is, like, they're more on par than some people would like to admit.
Sure.
Which, yes.
I mean, I guess they're more on par, but I mean, I'll ask for the sake of fairness in this conversation. What do you remember from the G2 graphic novel?
Not much. They weren't well written. I remember the dungeon, not dungeon, the relic of an abandoned fortress or temple they went to that had a bunch of cool statues. I remember Pohatu being training those doggos and carrying the doggos around with him. And I remember the kid whose family was taken over by the skull spiders, and the kid was sad, and the protectors had to come save them.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Okay.
So
How
yeah,
much
nothing
character
too
development
revolutionary.
happened?
Not a lot, because
How many
can't really do
character
much in
arcs did they
comics.
go through?
Not a lot.
Any?
I'm glad you agree with me that you can't really do much in comics.
Except that's not my point. My point is, G2 did not. G1 did.
All right,
I already gave you like 2 examples of character arcs.
this is true. When you boil down a character arc to he learned to work together, I can do that with anything.
Is that
G2.
not a character arc?
Anything that you hate in G2 or anything that you think is poorly done in G2, I can over dramatize it. Pohatu in Journey to One, Pohatu let his personal prejudices get in the way of the mission and the innocent lives of everybody on Okoto, and almost jeopardized saving the world because he was biased and didn't like scorpions.
Okay.
And when confronted with the folly of his own hubris, Pohatu had to overcome his personal vendettas and realize that despite his appearance and his outside exterior, Qatar was still he was still a living creature who deserved respect and love. And so when it came down to it, Pohatu cared more about saving Qatar's life than saving the lives of thousands of innocent Okotans on Okoto, because he went after him instead of the mask. And he was not willing to sacrifice that for the greater good. And it was at that moment that Pohatu realized the importance of individual life.
Yeah, and you're right.
Everything I just said is BS. Everything I just said
is it
true.
not inaccurate?
It's bogus.
Sure, it's talking it up, but it all happened.
It happened.
It's not
but nobody looks at Pohatu's arc and is like, "That's amazing."
Okay, sure, but it's an arc. It's there.
It sucks.
Is it not an arc? I'm still waiting for Garen's arc, Meso. Where is Garen's arc? You know what arc I think he has in 2006? The arc he makes as he walks from one cave to the next, which puts him well out of position for us to get to him in friggin' Vanog!
I just realized that Garen's arc is the exact same as Rey's arc from Star Wars.
Look at what you just said. Why would you
Garen
say
is Rey.
that?
Garen waited around. Garen cared about his people, but he waited around for people to come and help him. He was waiting for Toa. He was waiting for people to come back, like Rey was waiting for her parents to come back. When faced with dire times, Garen realized that It's not the past that matters, it's what's ahead. He couldn't spend his whole life waiting for saviors. He had to become a savior himself, because you don't have to be a Toa to be a hero.
It sure helps, though.
It sure does help. Just like it. Well, I almost just spoiled something.
Ooh,
Go-
you watch
I
it.
literally almost did from Rise of
You
Skywalker.
stop
Oh,
that.
boy. Anybody who's seen it knows the gotcha that I would say. But anyway, yeah, that's Garen's arc. Is it amazing? No, Garen's not a great character, and he backpacked a lot of his arc off Jala, who had a much stronger development. But the parallel between those two was critical to that story. The intercutting between those two areas was good for the build up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. I guess it's that's
Stop it.
Garen.
Here's the
Garen.
You are not wrong in saying Bionicle storytelling got better. I think I'm not going to dispute that.
And you're not wrong in saying there's arcs in 01.
Here's the thing, though. 01 is not a bad year, and it is not a poorly told story. It is a story told to the maximum effect of what LEGO represents. Creativity, imagination, building. And I think for that reason, it is such an undeniably strong year. I remember in my... I can't do little LJ voice. In my youth, playing with the Tomata and going, all right, I've got these masks. I got these Tomata. I'm going to make them have their own adventure to get X, Y, or Z mask. Something that wasn't shown in the story. And then as I got older and I got onto the board, to BZ Power and started asking Greg questions and started researching more media from 2001, I started to realize, all right, well, okay, so Tahu found this mask here. Latoa went to this place to get this mask. And Liwa got this mask here. And I started thinking, all right, why don't we just flesh out all of where they got the masks? And that was the wrong thought process. That was where I eventually realized that was a mistake to think. And I think somebody even asked Greg, well, hey, can you just disclose where the Toa got all their masks? And Greg said, well, then it takes the magic away. Then it takes the ability to do that on your own away, to create fan fiction or to create your own stories or to just, as a kid, have fun making your own events happen. And I realized at that point, is that not what everyone ended up getting angry about as the years went on, as things got later on in the years? The complexity, the revealing of secrets of the mystery, the red star not being just a red star or backpack, but instead being this zombie-making death machine. Or Velika being the great being and giving sentience to the entire inhabitants of the Matoran universe. Or the great beings just being the Glatorian species, but kind of smart. You know, revealing all these things, laying it all out, killing theorization, or all the nitty-gritty details of the Toa Mangai. 4 Toa of Ice. Well, okay, that was actually already revealed in 2004. But, you know, this Toa of Ice wears this mask, a cow, for whatever freaking reason. Or this Toa of Plant Life wears a mask of healing, or so on and so forth. It were all of these details, all of these things to technically flesh out the world, technically give you more details. That ticked everyone off. That made it a world not as interesting. And that's why 2001 is such a strong year. It has that mystique, it has that mystery, but it has enough. It has just enough to grip you, to get you invested in characters. They might not be the most fleshed out characters, but that's fine. That's great. It gives you characters to flesh out, to expand, to look more into. It gives you a story to look more into. And that's why 2001 is such a great starting point, because it doesn't need to worry with the fine minutia of, you know, Liwa almost made that bird die. Could he have relieved himself had he done that? Would he have even been right to call himself a Toa? Or Pohatu didn't say hello to the pie guy? Is he really a friend to all? It just needs to be straightforward, simple, but interesting. And 2001 pulls it off better than any other year.
Number one, I think you can have interesting character arcs that aren't written for 4-year-olds that also aren't try-hard edgy. I think there's a balance there that good writers can strike, that Bionicle struck, that Ninjago has struck, that O1 did not strike. Number two, I'm not one of the people like, yes, people did complain a lot about Bionicle throughout the years. People complain about everything. People complain about the aesthetic, the tone, the world, the characters, the story, the mystery, everything. I'm somebody who pretty much liked it consistently up till the end. And I like the direction it went in the more sci-fi, plot-driven angle. So that's all meaningless to me. That whole noise, like that's something that I'll actively fight against. Is the Bionicle should have Bionicle should have stayed how it was in 01. Doesn't mean I hate how 01 did it, but it evolved, and every year is just as valid as the last. And thirdly, oh boy, what was that? What was the last one? There was one more. Thirdly, I mean, you are correct in the sense that as a starting point for the theme, how 01 handled it ended up being pretty great. It left enough room to build on, it established enough to be interesting, and then it carried that forward into subsequent years. But like that's true for the beginning entry into any franchise. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 did that exceptionally. It set up the basics of the world, the characters, introduced some backstory and some plots and some arcs, but not enough to really not enough to eliminate all mystery for future seasons. We're on season 7, and we're still learning new stuff about the characters. But I would never say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 is like the best season of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it was the most amateurish. They were figuring things out. They tackled the least interesting things out of any of the seasons, and its writing was at its weakest back then as well, with the exception of season 6. So I think you're correct in that sense. And maybe it is unfair of me to lambast that as a critique against 01. But again, it's all about framing. It's not that I hate 01. It's that I don't think 01 is the greatest thing since sliced bread. That is where I differ. But as a year, I mean, it was fine.
Yeah, I mean,
like I said, it's in my top 5.
I don't necessarily think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread either. My point is, I think that it has a quality to it that no other year has really ever captured.
I can agree to
and
that.
I feel like there is maybe it is just because it is an intro year, and only an intro year can really pull that off.
Can do it.
Maybe that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly won't argue that point. It does have that quality, as has been already established.
Mm-hmm. So maybe that is the case. I'm not sure. But I know no other year really was able to manage that to quite the same extent. You were saying earlier, well, Monog, it's only, maybe it's only good because Templar did it. Not
I give
Lego.
partial credit.
I mean, I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter who made it. It was made, and it is a part of the story. At the end of the day, that's it. It's all that matters.
I don't disagree with that.
Because we're not talking about, well, did Lego do a good job with 2001? We're just talking about, was 2001, was it good? Did it do a good job? Did it succeed? And is it worthy of being part of the golden years? The 3 fundamental years of the franchise. And it doesn't matter how it got to that point. It did. It got there.
I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong. It did exist. It's like I said earlier, I would never seek to argue against Monog's existence because Monog happens to be my favorite Bonkle media.
Yeah.
It's mainly the point of view that because Monog exists in spite of itself, it exists in spite of Lego's wishes and their vision for the theme. Like, actively, it went against everything. And we'll get into that in a future episode. But, like, because of that, I can't, like... It reflects on what else Lego had to offer, which is like, well, if Monog is what they weren't too interested in doing, then what were they interested in doing? And what was Lego's plan for '01 past Monog, and how did that manifest in its other media? Which is why I criticize the comics so harshly, because that is all the other media there was. Like, I guess you could count Kathy Hopka's books, because
But
even
they
though they
came
didn't
in
come
03.
out in 2001, they were planned. So that would have been had they been released. But yeah, that's the only reason why I group Monog differently. It's because it was like, yeah, it went against everything.
I mean, sure.
But
And I think
it
that's
was
good.
good.
That's a really good thing. I think, honestly, if we want to get an idea of what Lego would have planned for 2001, I think we see it. We already know what it is.
Yep.
It's 2015.
Yep. Pretty much. And I have a lot more to say on that subject than I do on the subject of whether 2001 was good or not. So you can bet a little teaser for the future that will be a hot topic in the I can't even talk. I'm slurring my words. In the future. I know we already talked about it at one point on the Eljay Johnson show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing to dig into. For now, in the interest of not being unfair, I can't really argue against that point.
Yeah.
'01 did have it has good attributes. It's just not my favorite year. It's probably my fifth favorite year.
It's probably what?
My fifth favorite year.
I mean, that's
in
fine.
My rankings.
That's the thing. I obviously I really like playing up theatrics. Like, I think that's pretty apparent that this entire thing. Like, everyone understand, we could have had an entirely calm, polite conversation this entire time. I have just chosen not to because it's fun.
It was great.
So, the thing is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not it's the best year or it's the worst year. Because you know what the best year of Bionicle is?
2016.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the J Show. Anyway, the best year of Bionicle is whichever year is your favorite.
Hooray for subjectivity. Yeah.
I mean, listen, we're never going to boil down the best year. They all have... they play into each other too much. The only one that doesn't play into any... that doesn't have another year play into it is '01. And it did just enough right, just enough mystery, just enough intrigue, just enough to engage me, even after it ended. Because I didn't even read the books when I got into Bionicle. I didn't read them at the time. So my understanding of 2001 was bookless. No books. It was just comics and Monog. And it was still enough to make me go, gosh dang, this year's excellent. I am absolutely going to remember enjoying this year as much as I do. And I still do. I still think it holds up. I still think it's a super engaging year. And I attribute a lot of that to its visual design, the depth of which the world was fleshed out, and the simplicity and expansive potential of its straightforward characters.
And to be completely fair, I don't disagree with either of those things. Because I've said in the past in my top 10 best things about G2 video, like I understand why Lego would want to go with a simple approach so as to not alienate people. And I mean, if you're gonna compare the two, '01 definitely handled it better than G2 did as far as base characterization. So if I'm going that direction, it's basically just splitting hairs as to how good it did. It did good enough for Bonkle to survive for 10 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'll say, to be fair. Also, for anyone curious, my top 5 favorite years in order: 06, 07, 08, 09, 01.
I don't remember.
And then my bottom 5 in order: 03, 04, 02, what was the other one? 05 and 2010.
I like 2010 more than 05.
It was barely a year. It was 3 months.
Eh.
Anyway, that's just a curiosity thing. I think that's all we pretty much have to say for now.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Not really. No.
All right. Fair enough. In that case, let us move along into some questions. So if anyone would like to ask some questions, then yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead and post in the Discord chat, post in the YouTube chat, and we will read some off.
I'm gonna put my books back. I'm gonna go ahead because I brought my comics out. They're in a binder, which is under like a bunch of other stuff. So I gotta go ahead and put everything back.
All right. You do that. Ask some Q's, fellas. Some Q's. And I'll give some A's. It'll be a regular old Q&A.
Well, gee, Meso, who would have thought? Ow.
Purple asks, hey Mesa, what's your SSN? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There you go.
Wow, that's the same SSN as on my luggage.
Let's see. Telecon asks, do you consider Kathy Hopka's books a part of the year they tell the story of, or more like a retcon? I presume he's referring to stuff like the Shadow Toa and whatnot.
Hang on.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Gotta get back out the books.
No, I'm not getting the books back out. What was the question?
He asks, do you consider Kathy Hopka's books a part of the year they released, or are they more like a retcon?
What did they retcon?
Well, I presume he's talking about stuff like the Shadow Toa and the dubious place in canonicity that they have, because weren't they outlined in a particular way in Kathy Hopka's books? I know there's some debate over that and their initial point in the story.
I mean, here's the thing. You want to know what the Shadow Toa's place in 2001 was? Nothing. They didn't have a place in 2001. Okay, because you know what they showed up in? Here, actually, let me go ahead and get a list. Shadow Toa. Here we go. Okay. They showed up in 4 pieces of media. Okay? Bionicle Chronicles 1, Tale of the Toa. Comic 4, Borak Awake, mentioned only. Bionicle Encyclopedia, and Bionicle Encyclopedia Updated. Do you know how many of those came out in 2001?
None.
Exactly. Do you know where else they were mentioned? Nowhere else.
All right.
They were going to be in the game, but as we know, they never made it into the game, and it didn't matter because the game didn't come out. Now, so as far as 2001 is concerned, they weren't retcon necessarily. They were retconned in the sense that they did not go the route of the story guide, essentially. So the way that they were supposed to be handled was not gone about. But as far as we were concerned, it didn't matter. We now know, however, thanks to this nifty little... Let me just go ahead and post this. This is an excerpt from the Bionicle Style Guide, which covers the first 3 years. I'm not going to post it on the video. If you go on BSO1 and look up Style Guide, you'll be able to find it. Yeah, so here's an image. This is the canon confrontation between the Toa and the Shadow Toa. Okay? We only got to see this, like, 2014, 15? Late. Very late. So, yeah.
In the books, he elaborated, and he was like, in the books, they just beat them and then go home.
No, I don't think so.
Hmm.
Now I gotta get another book out.
Oh
Give me a
boy.
sec. All right, Tail of the Toa.
Because yeah, I'm very like shaky on this. I haven't read Kathy Hapka's books in a million years.
They beat them. Here, okay. Quick look. Da, da, da.
Orikume says they do. The confrontation with Makuta isn't in the book.
Yeah, in the book. Okay,
I
yeah.
get it.
But they don't go home. Anua smiled, though there was a hint of wariness in his eyes. I think, he said, that we have won an important battle, and that we can be proud. But there is more to come. Tahu nodded, his grin fading as he gripped his fire sword more tightly. Yes, Anua was right. He could feel it, burning in his mind like a half-remembered dream. There was much more to come. And that's the end of the book.
So I see. So he's saying that because the confrontation with Makuta is not in the book, then can it be considered as as an actual material to the story, or would it be a retcon in that
Why?
sense? I would say
What makes
say
it a
it falls
retcon?
because it's retroactive continuity. The way it's described in the book, can it line up with the fight against Makuta?
Why
Or do
not?
the two contradict each other?
How-
I don't know. I haven't read the books in a million years.
It doesn't
You're the expert.
contradict. They
Tell me.
beat the Shadow Toa and they essentially just stand around and then the book ends. They don't go anywhere. So continuity wise, they stand there, they talk, Makuta shows up. That's the continuity. Because the way it goes, it's
Got it.
Toa enter, Toa fight Manas, Toa fight Shadow Toa, Toa fight Makuta.
Got it. So because they don't leave, then it can still happen. Ergo, no retcon.
Yes.
Cool. All right. I dig it. Yeah, I'm not an expert on Hapka's books. I tend to ignore them in my rereads. I think I've read them like once.
I mean, they're fine. I don't dislike them.
Let's see. Let's do another question. Ulti says, "Hey Meso, what was G1 Pohatu's arc?"
I will actually say
That's a good question,
Pohatu
though.
didn't have an arc.
Rip.
Even in this little excerpt of the Toa fighting the Shadow Toa, see, if we had gotten this in 2001, it's undeniable all 6 Toa, all 5 of the Toa will have an arc. But if you look at this image, do you know which Toa was the first to beat their Shadow Toa? It's Pohatu. Because the Shadow Toa play on the Toa's doubts, but Pohatu didn't have, well, he didn't necessarily not have any. It's like, let me see. So, what's your story? Pohatu grumbled. I don't have one. Shadow Pohatu answered. I am invisible. Unwanted. Onua is wiser. Tahu more powerful. Gali more in harmony with her world. What am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose?
Thanks.
It's GT Pohatu. Pohatu chuckled. Am I supposed to be scared by all that? Everybody has doubts and fears. Everybody worries sometimes that maybe they'll lose their friends or screw something up. But you get up, and you keep going, and you take the chance. And he walks forward, and he beats his Shadow Toa by having his...
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Now, yeah, it's really good. It's good stuff. It should have been released. So, he beats the Shadow Toa, like I said.
All right. Another question. This is from Sakota. Question: do you think O1 would have been a success for LEGO without Manaug? Do you think it really affected the general public, or just the hardcore fans, or were the O1 set designs enough to make Bionicle successful? Not knowing metrics of anything of the sort, I think it definitely primarily only affected the hardcore. I don't think Manaug was really instrumental in Bionicle's reach. You know, it wasn't an advertising vessel. They didn't have commercials for Manaug. It was an activity to deepen engagement if you chose to interact with Bionicle further, it was a vessel that was available to you if you followed the the website and whatnot. But I don't think it could be said that it's the reason why Bionicle is a success. I think that was primarily due to the pop culture phenomenon it became, the sets, the product, the imagery, commercials, etc., etc. All that stuff, mask packs. I do, however, think, and this will be discussed in the future, that the legacy that Monog has left by being the de facto community thing has set a standard that is borderline impossible to follow, and it set a standard which makes people have more of a critical eye towards any piece of story-driven material that any Bionicle could have, and especially any game that Lego releases as part of their themes, because you have to compare it to what Monog was able to achieve with its very limited dated tech and format. Like G2 had 2 games and they were both forgettable mobile games that didn't do anything for the story. So I think it's primarily that it's a hardcore thing.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't have any statistics. I don't think they exist anymore. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't know. All right, I'm going to take a comment from YouTube now to mix it up a little bit. Let me go.
Let's do a few
scroll
more.
up. A few more. All right.
Maybe 2 more.
2 more in general.
We'll do 3 more. 2 more from YouTube, 1 more from patron chat.
I'm gonna ask all the comments that are currently up as of this time. 10:08. That's what I'm gonna do.
What?
Yeah. There's only a few.
Okay, fair
enough. McLego boy, where is pink in the 2001 colors? Would this have made LJ be more receptive to it?
What?
Yeah, if pink was in 01, maybe you would hate it less. There you go.
Unlikely.
Boydo asks, what was wrong with canonizing the information about the Toa Mangai of the Green?
Because it's
gonna come.
It's pointless.
Yeah, that's a good TLDR.
Yeah, it's restrictive and it's pointless. That's it. I mean, you went from having an avenue of which the community can create and theorize and come up with their own explanations and designs to it's this now. And the character didn't even talk. See, I'm fine for canonizations and explorations and the fleshing out of details for characters that had speaking lines. Anything else? No.
That's fair enough. Diego Kixotri, I think that's how you pronounce it. I apologize if I botched that. I probably did. He says, do you watch every frame a pause? Neither of us do, but we both do like Mahler's content. We both very much enjoy his unbridled rages in his Star Wars The Last Jedi and Force Awakens critiques and teardowns. Honestly, the only reason why I don't watch his podcast, I don't like his co-hosts.
Yeah.
I'm not as big on them. I'm not as big in Mahler in an unscripted way. Not to say he's not still entertaining, but I definitely prefer his meticulous, vicious, well thought out, breakdowns much more than him just, chatting with his friends for a few hours. Not that it can't be entertaining; it's just not what I watch him for. But I am definitely a Mahler fan. Number 1.
Number 5.
Let's see. YouTube. Oh no, my browser's frozen.
Nice.
I think that was all the YouTube comments. I think that was actually it.
Okay.
So let me go back to Discord chat, see if there's any more there. Magic Ninja asks, would Velika be considered as having an arc or growth?
No.
I mean,
No.
technically.
What's his arc? What's his growth?
He had a plan.
That's not
And
an
he
arc.
worked
That's a
towards
plan.
growing it.
What's his arc, Meso?
He became a great bee.
Okay, moving on. Moving on.
Okay. Says, you talk a lot about change through the years in this episode. This is from Ulti. Do you think that the Toa Nuva designs in the following years would have the same iconicity as 01 if the designs were more similar, or that they benefited from their more standout designs? I don't know what to necessarily to respond to that with, because it's all about, it's all subjectivity. Like, there are people who I've seen who prefer their Nuva designs. There are people who prefer, the Nuva masks. And there are some people who prefer the Nuva armor, but like on the whole, most people don't seem to prefer the Nuva masks. And it just becomes like a community aggregate at that point to paint like a picture. The Nuva masks they're not hated, but they're also not, they're not lauded with the same kind of refined design work that made the 01 Mata masks iconic. They're very large. They're very intricate. I would say they're a little clunky, particularly Pohatu and Onua's. They're not as cohesive and refined as 01 Mata masks were. But, that's just me personally. I know plenty of people probably like them just fine. But I don't know if they would necessarily have benefited by being closer in design to the 01 style. I think they may have just benefited from following a similar design template. Like, I think they tried to make them different because they wanted to really make them stand out, since the sets themselves weren't making too many advancements. But like, they look nothing like the Mata masks. Most of them don't. Kapaka's does. But like, Pohatu and Onua don't really share anything in common. Same with Liwa. So it's just kind of a wash. I wish they had followed similar design language while not necessarily borrowing the same designs. A good way to do it, 2015. The 2015 masks followed similar design language, but still evolved the masks. Just look at the Miru to the Mask of Jungle. The Mask of Jungle is a far better Miru Nuva than the actual Miru Nuva.
Correct. No, this is 100% true.
But that's my only opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Nuva masks are too samey. They're too similar to each other. They don't have their own unique identity that is defined. They do not have an iconic silhouette. All of the Mata masks have defined, unique silhouettes that can be identified easily without any extraneous details. The Nuva masks have a silhouette, but they're too samey. I mean, Liwa's mask has spikes. Anua's mask has spikes. Pohatu's mask has spikes. Galley's mask, spikes to the sides. Kopaka's, no spikes. Tahu's looks like it was a candy bar that was left in a microwave. It just looks melted. It doesn't, it doesn't have, they don't have unique and interesting silhouettes.
Nope. And I think that's it. Oh wait, one more. I'll do this one from Orikume. Says, I'm curious, does every character need an arc? No. As much as I meme on Cole from Ninjago for not having any character growth, like, he acts as a dynamic buffer.
Does he?
Kind of like Pohatu.
No.
Characters like that fill a role.
You're still not getting Pohatu. you never.
I mean, you said Pohatu didn't have an arc.
Yeah, he doesn't have an arc. That doesn't mean he fills the same role as Cole.
My God.
Cole and Pohatu are very different characters. Pohatu is defined. Cole is vague.
The point is, not everyone in an ensemble cast needs to have an arc. In the Avengers movie, Hawkeye, he didn't really do much. He was mind controlled for most of the movie. He came in at the end, and he helped with dynamics. Black Widow, we barely knew anything about her. She hadn't gotten a movie up at that point yet. She still hasn't yet, Lamau. But they were just there in the movie for ensemble reasons. Hulk was basically a completely different character. The real people who had arcs were Thor, Iron Man, Captain America. They had their own movies. They saw their arcs to completion. They worked it well. The Avengers worked fine despite having multiple characters who didn't really have much. But despite the fact that Avengers worked fine, those characters that didn't have much are the ones who are looked upon the least favorably, particularly Hawkeye in that movie, because he didn't have much to work with. People like characters who have depth. People like characters who have things to grapple with. So not everybody needs an arc. It's okay. Their characters can still work. It certainly helps if they do. It helps make them stand out. It helps make people like them. And it helps affect their role in the narrative by having an expose into their mind and what they value the most. And it helps inform their decisions about how they act in the story. It makes them feel like real people, basically. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago. You are not the same person you were 2 years ago. You have had an arc as a person in that time. You've grown up. Maybe big, maybe small. Might be as simple as learning to work together, or it may be as complex as, saving the universe. Not you specifically, but you get my point. But you've grown. People grow, which is why people like seeing characters who also grow. That's basically it.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Keely Khan asks, do I think there were examples of deep, good characters without arcs? I'm sure there are. None immediately come to mind as to me, because that's not what I value, but I'm sure there can be some that are found.
In Bionicle or in general?
In fiction in general.
Oh.
That's what he's getting at.
Yeah, nothing's come to my mind.
The ones I think of are characters that had their arcs before the story started, like Iroh from Avatar. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah. Older characters, people who have lived their lives, they totally work as mentors, dispensing that wisdom onto other characters. And then if they ever do show it through flashbacks or whatever, it helps humanize them. But, yeah, that's fair. All right. I think that is all for this week's Knack and Jay. I think that's a good ending point.
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's much more we can do.
Nope, not without bridging into future topics. There's a lot more we could say on the subject, but it would play into different themes that we could talk about for longer.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
we will we'll go ahead and call it there. But thank you, everyone, for showing up and making it another wonderful time. We will see you all next week,
Meso.
next year.
We have
for more
plugs.
next. Oh, yeah. Go ahead and do your plug.
Okay. So, Kappa will be affecting the channel. Meso posted a video about that. So, we have the Patreon, low as $1 a month. You can join our Patreon Discord server. And we're currently working on a stretch goal of 100 patrons to have a full-time Minecraft server, a faction server on the island of Motunui. Excuse me. Additionally, we have TTV message boards at board.ttvchannel.com. Head on over there. Lego author Greg Farshty is there answering questions. We also have a topic, top 10 TTV moments of 2019. So go ahead and make your submissions there as well. And Twitter at the TTV channel, at Messanak, and at the Eljay Johnson. That's JOHNSEN.
Important updates will be found there.
Yeah, pretty much. Real quick, as far as a last TTV podcast of the year, there won't be. There will be a first TTV podcast of the new year.
Yes. We are going to bring back the TTV podcast on January 1st, 2020. And we're going to have a New Year's bash.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be fun. I don't know who will show up. It might be a very limited show, but we'll see.
Probably. And then, of course, I should mention before we dip, this has only been the second to last video of 2019 on the TTV channel. I'll see you guys at the final day of the year.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Eljay throwing down the gauntlet.
Ooh, what could it be? What could it be?
I wonder what it could be.
All right, Meso.
Are you a man of your word, Eljay?
A man of my friggin' word. Dang it!
All right, we'll see y'all next week for another exciting episode of Knack and Jay. Cue the music. All right, everyone. This was streamed live from a Golden Beach. I'm Meso and Eljay,
I'm Eljay.
and this was Knack and Jay.
Ugh.